Let's look at what is happening on our first program. It says here this program is a demonstration of flashing an LED. This is usually called a hello world program, where a little LED flashes and tells the world that the microcontroller lives. The first thing we're going to look at is directives. This hashtag denotes a compiler directive. So what a compiler directive is we are telling the compiler what it should or should not do. When we start using more libraries and more of the peripherals of the controller itself, then we're going to use more directives as well, so that the compiler know what to do with those peripherals and how to handle them. The directives we're looking at here in particular, the chip directive, this tells Great Cow Basic what chip are we using, the exact chip model, so that it can compile the code to be compatible with that chip. This 48 is the clock speed of the chip. It's 48 for use with USB, so I just leave it 48. When we start doing things that's going to use less batteries, or we don't need things to happen as fast, we can change that. But so far I have found that everything works on 48, so I just leave it at that. Option bootloader, we are using a bootloader, and we need to tell the compiler not to write over our bootloader when it is programming the chip. And this is what this directive says. Our bootloader is set at this offset. Don't worry about this nomenclature at the moment. This is called hexadecimal. We will get to that a bit later. So we need to tell the compiler that we are using a bootloader and where the bootloader resides, so that the compiler doesn't overwrite our bootloader. So if you make a change here, or you forget to put this in here on the Halphabot specifically, it's going to break the bootloader, and then the Halphabot will stop working. Option no config, do not set configuration bits. Configuration bits is something that is set when you program your microcontroller for the very first time. So the bootloader takes care of that. So we don't need to really worry about that. And if we're going to do Great Cow Basic help on it, it's going to say, nope. Let's say on option no config, this option will present the general assembler from generating config items, and it is used when using a bootloader. There we go. Option explicit means that all variables must be declared. We haven't really discussed variables yet. It will be discussed in a later stage. But I personally like putting that option in there, because what Great Cow Basic does, if you type in a variable and you misspell it from the way that you typed it before, it simply creates a new variable. And then you are scratching your head. What happens? Why isn't my program working? I'm trying to manipulate that variable. In the meantime, it is spelled slightly different than when you've typed it before, and Great Cow Basic just created a new one. So I like to put that one there, so that if I type a variable wrong, it's going to tell me, listen, that variable does not exist. What do you want to do? Dir means direction, and is the port an input or an output? Input means it can read a value. Output means it can send either high or low, which is plus 5 volt, or low, which is 0 volt. Now port C5, what does that mean? If you look at the picture in the tutorial, or if you look at the device data sheet, the pins are denoted by ports, and this particular chip we are using have got 3 ports, A, B and C. So we are using port C, and we want to turn on pin 5 on port C. So here we are telling the compiler the direction of our port Is it an input or an output? We want port C5, so it is port C pin 5, and we want it to be an output. Here variables, I'm not going to discuss variables now, we'll get to it a bit later. Now we get to this pink guy, main. This is a label. So what labels do is they are used to direct program flow. So we will see here go to main. That will send the program flow go to main, and it will actually create a loop. When programming microcontrollers, a lot of times we are using loops, lots and lots of loops. Now, I say in the tutorial, goto is frowned upon by serious programmers. Sometimes goto is not a good thing to use, but in this case, when we are actually trying to create an infinite loop, goto will do the job perfectly. And it's a small program, we can easily see what's happening. The main complaint about goto is it makes spaghetti code. I don't know much about that. I don't use it often, but it does have its place. And I have used it before to solve problems that the serious programmers couldn't solve. Right. But that aside. Set means set a pin either on or off. So that's very straightforward. Wait means wait. And we say how long and in which units. So wait 1 second. So wait can be, here we've got microseconds, milliseconds, seconds, minutes, even hours, how long it will be able to wait. And that's pretty much that.